Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another Unauthorized Caucus. I am your host, Ryan Height, your other host, Andrew Muller, right here on the other side of the screen. And we're very glad to be joining you again on this lovely Thursday. Although, Andrew and I have to admit something else again. We don't know if it's lovely or not because it's not Thursday yet. It's Wednesday. So we have another conflict of schedule for me this time, not Andrew's fault. I can't blame him like I did on our emails last week. Sorry, Andrew, you may not have seen those. If so, if you didn't,
Oh, I didn't.
Nothing happened. But my fault for a conflict. However, I still will be sitting there unavailable to talk, but I'll be sitting there. We will make sure the links are dropped below. We will make sure that this conversation is fully supported by a human and not a chat bot, but we're going to get into that in a minute. So please chime in and get down in the comments below or over in the chat. But don't forget, like, share, and subscribe wherever you are. Hit the big red button. Follow us. Friend us on Facebook. Like the page. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the notification bell if you're there on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Rumble. But most importantly, go to phyllisschlafly.com. And when that little banner pops up on the top, sign up with your email. You will not miss any of these videos or any of the other important things going on, because we won't sell your email to anyone. We will just send you things that are very important that you'll want to know about. So go and do those things for us first. Or maybe we'll, as soon as we're done with this conversation. Don't disrupt yourself from this conversation because we got a whopper today. There's a lot of stuff going on. So we're going to circle back around, Andrew. We've talked about this a little bit. We've got all kinds of stuff coming from Elon Musk. We got a lot of stuff coming from Twitter. We got TikTok. We got Congress. There is a lot going on the frontier of digital innovation in America. And a lot of it is either being abused or right on the edge of being abused. So let's dive into this. First, that's right. We have breaking news. Andrew, this is your breaking news. You bring the breaking news first because this link will be first. So you want to go ahead and lead with this for us?
Are you talking about what I think you're talking about?
Yes, the premiere. I mean, first, there's two things you need to do for Mother's Day, for your wives, for your mothers. Number one, go to store.phyllisschlafly.com and buy her a copy of a book, preferably The Power of the Positive Woman or something extremely relatable. But number two on your list and the next stop should be
Chick-fil-A merch. I didn't think that this was going to make it into the live stream territory, but, I can't say I'm upset about it. Chick-fil-A and all of its glory, the Atlanta originating chicken conglomerate is now selling and offering merchandise for its beloved sauces, mainly of the historic and proprietary Chick-fil-A sauce. You can now get bucket hats, trucker hats, tote bags, shoes, shirts, everything. It's incredible. And what I sent to be a joke to Ryan, knowing we both love Chick-fil-A, turned into something of a reality where he is now observing these things and considering their purchase, which is incredible.
You know what, though? Here's the deal. When you love something as much as you should love Chick-fil-A, just because of America and, Christianity, at least this is what the left tells me, that if I buy Christian chicken, then I'm part of that thing now. If you're going to observe something so much, you might as well tell people. This is an awesome opportunity to rep something that is not awful, which is about what we're about to get into. So I figured we'd start on a bright note. And also, I just wanted to put you on the spot because that was funny. But really, everyone, Chick-fil-A has a whole new line of merch for all your favorite sauces. So as huge purveyors of Chick-fil-A, at least our collegians conferences and everything, we always cater in Chick-fil-A. It's a crowd favorite. Here you go. You heard it here, hopefully first. We broke the news. And then Chick-fil-A, if you're hearing this, feel free to retweet it. Just like Elon, feel free to retweet this. Anyone with a massive following bigger than us, feel free to retweet for the reason of your choice. But let's go ahead.
You're asking me to retweet it then?
You missed a key phrase there with the following bigger than we already have.
But
yes. Oh, yes. No, I don't either. But no, I'm kidding. Let's get into it. Okay. We got a big hullabaloo and a lot of stuff going on right now. So the seriousness of Chick-fil-A sauces aside, and into the seriousness of something as vague as artificial intelligence, which is even more of a hidden factor than the Chick-fil-A secret sauce recipe. Let's get into it. So first of all, Andrew, let me say this. Everyone, it feels like I get whiplash where I feel like one moment I'm extremely excited about Elon Musk and some decision he's making, and then the next moment something else happens that it kind of drives me over the edge of oh yeah, never mind. This guy doesn't get it. there's some issues here that I have to remind myself to pull back, that Elon Musk is not a movement conservative or anything. He doesn't have the same values that I have. So while I'm appreciative of his fight in free speech, there's some other things. So, on the positive side, we saw this week, Twitter is removing this ridiculous policy that they probably never, I don't remember them admitting this one out loud, that they had a policy forbidding the dead naming of trans people using their biological name, heaven forbid. That's one of the big flashpoints that the LGBT community likes to, scream and wail about when someone uses a dead name of a trans person. So Twitter has been participating in that nonsense by forbidding that. Those tweets get flagged and removed. Elon Musk's Twitter, which has a name change apparently, but that's a separate story. They've removed that policy, jettisoned it, gone. Good for free speech. But then Elon Musk comes in and starts talking about a truth-seeking AI, a truth-seeking artificial intelligence program to try to best some of the ridiculousness. Which, Andrew, you've got some thought. Let me have you dive this off. ChatGPT has been kind of a phenomenon across the internet and a couple of other things. You want to give everyone a rundown, just real quick from your perspective? Well, ChatGPT, what is this? And then also, where does this lead us back to a conversation about AI in general? And then maybe that's where we'll hunker in and start to have a little bit more of a conversation. What is ChatGPT?
Sure. Well, it's the broader question would be, what's AI, right? So artificial intelligence, right? That's what AI is. So at a very base rudimentary scale, like Siri on your phone or Alexa on your phone, for example, is kind of a very base level AI type system. So ChatGPT is kind of a product of this open AI idea where you can go to this source called ChatGPT and you can ask it questions. You can ask it to do certain tasks. This could even be, hey, ChatGPT, write me a paper, a research paper on the mating habit of the African giraffe or whatever it may be. And it could, scour the internet, scour all these sources, and pretty much in an instant, write you an original research paper utilizing and accessing pretty much all the data that it has access to compile and using artificial intelligence, pretty much create a proprietary and original paper on something. Subsequently, AI and this open AI concept has gotten into these ideas of like deep fakes, where maybe you've seen some of those where it's Tom Cruise or Joe Biden or somebody else saying things or doing things, and it's not really that individual, but using the same concept as ChatGPT with the draft research paper, or the giraffe, African giraffe research paper. It'll go and it'll study Tom Cruise and all the available videos of Tom Cruise or of Joe Biden. And what does his speech sound like? What's his inflection sound like? Or some words he uses frequently. And they'll mimic that and create a product or a result or an original thought out of that. So it's quite terrifying. So what Elon is doing with this, and Elon really helped fund, if you go back to the history of AI and OpenAI and ChatGPT, Elon was really big and involved in its creation. But he has a fear, as I do, as many people do, that this AI system, now fleshing out in ChatGPT, could be very detrimental. And his remedy to that, as kind of a big thinker and a capitalist, I'd argue, is that he wants to create another AI system called, ultimate truth-seeking AI, or truth AI, something along those lines.
Right.
Where it
Truth
would
GPT.
Truth GPT.
Yeah.
Where it would essentially, instead of being programmed by people of a more liberal, Marxist, progressive persuasion to maybe avoid certain facts or not include certain data in its analysis and its thoughts, Elon would create something that's a competitor to that, that would seek truth and would not have any sort of limitation or restriction on it for what it can and can't say. Because we already see ChatGPT asking it questions about gender or asking it questions about homosexuality or whatever it may be, and it's starting to answers because the people who are programming it and creating it happen to be of that persuasion, or not so happen to be of that persuasion. But Elon wants to create an alternative to that.
So, and this opens up a whole realm of discussion to be had. And I mean, in your point, first of all, this is, the two different things I can think of that I hear most people talk about, number one, everyone goes down the road of, so if you really think we create this thing, can it, is there any way to control it or rather not control it and ensure that it's not influenced by people who are trying to influence other people? Like, is that even a possibility? Which this actually ties into a principle that we're going to cover in the next thing that we want to talk about. But honestly, like, this is really, I think the main concern that people have is the ability, the openness that this gives for some incredible risks in security, risks in just knowing and seeing the truth whatsoever, risks in the autonomization and the hands-off of human decision-making. This enters into like a whole different, cross-section of items. And this is one of those things where, as we talk about, should we even pursue things like this, try to pursue a good version of it? There's a few different roads. And I just mentioned a couple of things, but like, let me bring something up and tie in the train crash, the first train crash, the first of how many train derailments have there been at this point now this year? But the first one in Palestine, Ohio, it turns out a lot of that comes back to an automized system, or rather I should say a set of automized systems, because they got a video from 20 miles earlier down the track that there is a fire between a coupled section of two cars that is actively going on. And there's not people running up and down the train like in the old days where the engineers and conductors are walking up and down and checking everything manually. There's sensors. And this system of sensors, apparently one of the sensors wasn't working, or they were ignoring it, thinking there was a faulty sensor or something. And it just went and went and went and went and went until finally something awful happened, a tragedy of explosion and derailment, when in fact it seems that there may have been some kind of connection. If human eyes and hands were running more on this and less automized items that we're just watching and relying upon, maybe this whole thing could have been avoided. Now, again, we're into hypotheticals there, but I mean, this is even an offshoot. This is so far away from looking at the liberal bias of Chat GPT, but it's kind of worth considering, because what you're doing is looking at a world of all of these different consequences when you start to automate things. And I know the other one that everyone talks about, the deep fake thing. This is a serious problem.
Yeah.
Looking at a video and saying, I mean, at this point, you can still kind of tell, for anyone who's educated and watching these kinds of things, you can tell when it doesn't seem quite right. But as that technology advances, it's only a matter of time before, where do we arrive? Eyewitness testimony in court, video testimony in court is now kaput, because we never know if it can be trusted or not. I mean, that's really almost kind of a possibility without even thinking too hard about where we could go. So there's a lot of questions that get raised about whether we should even do this. It's not too far off the hook for people to go all the way down the, Skynet, Terminator. Well, whether the machines come alive or not, this is going to have some serious consequences across tons of society. So should this even, I say this, what do you think? Should we even pursue a remedy for the liberal bias part of AI, or should we be looking to restrict and not move on with AI projects at all? Is that inevitable because someone is, so we might as well have a hand at what do you think? These are questions that I know I'm constantly asking myself, having these conversations with other people. What do you think? Where does it fall? Do we need to ditch AI altogether? Is it not even possible to do that at this point? So you need to have a hand in it. Are you a full Skynet believer and worrier, or, is this a good thing that could be harnessed? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, these are good questions. I think it does get to the point where it's there's an inevitability to it, where private companies are going to continue to invest and create and engineer AI. So I don't think it'll ever be truly stopped. And then if you want it to truly stop, well, what's going to be the conservative answer to that? Having government come in and ban AI, that's not going to work. So I think that, like anything, AI is a tool, right? Just like nuclear weapons, just like a machine gun, just like a camera, just like anything, it is a tool in an essence. And the stewardship of that tool properly can be a good thing. And the misuse. It's kind of like what you talk train while you're talking about that. I'm just thinking, if everything's human run, that works great. And it's the most vast majority of the world's operated that way. And that's probably ideal. But, we do have technology and it is helpful. And there's things sensors can't pick up that we can, because we have a rational sense to us and eyes to be able to be like, wait, this thing's on fire. And there's other things sensors can pick up that we don't. So I think that in situations like this, a mix of the two is great. And that can be advantageous. But with Chat GPT and AI, I think it is inevitable. The question is, how are we going to handle it? Because in essence, it can only operate based upon the limitations and the information that's given it. But also by the same rubric, if it gets to the point where it's become so big, my brain at least thinks, well, isn't there a chance it could grow out of that and become so complex and so vast that we really don't have a handle on it? And then the deep fake thing really scares me too. When you see these videos of people and, it's like, well, wait, did that person say that or not? And I think the answer to the whole deep fake thing is probably doubling down on libel laws. Because if somebody prints something about you that's libelous, of course, there can be repercussions for that. The same thing should be true if they make an AI of you or a deep fake of you saying or doing something you didn't do and defame your character. So I think we need to double down on that. But it begs the question, how do you tell a real one from a fake one? And how do you prove it wasn't you saying it down the road? Now, right now, it's kind of obvious. Well, wait, the lip movement's not right and it's a little fuzzy. But it might get to the point where it's not that at all. So I think there needs to be some sort of a rubric to, discern reality from fiction. But that is a big question I have in my mind. So I think it's inevitable. I think that people not participating in it, especially those who want to use AI for devious purposes, to not invest in it, not to participate in it. And if it is going to be an inevitable part of the way technology moves forward, of course, having a free market, open capitalistic concept, kind of like Elon's pushing, where, hey, we'll have a truth GPT that will not be liberal and leaning and somewhat limited. That would, of course, be the route that I'd probably go down if we came to that point.
Right. And I have to kind of agree with you. I know this is something we haven't really talked a whole lot about from, our Phyllis Schlafly Eagles world, but I do know one of the things that I thought of, I saw, and it was referenced in some of these articles that I'm gonna get back. This was back in March. I saw this, that Elon Musk and 1,000 other technology leaders, including Steve Wozniak of Apple, or original Apple, and a bunch of other people had signed, basically, they signed a petition asking for a 6-month pause, I think it was, on AI development because they feared the technology was getting too far ahead. And as soon as I thought that, my first thought was, how in the world are you going to import? Everyone's working on this. Like, China's working on this, Russia's working on this, Taiwan is working on this, America's working. A lot of good people and a lot of bad people are both working on this. What are you going to call a pause that everyone's going to listen to? And my mind just immediately went back. I have been recently digging through some of Phyllis's archives on a lot of her pre-ERA stuff, because we actually in our news and notes that went out today, I had a great interview with her from 1967. She's talking about a lot of defense issues, and people forget, or rather don't know, that before the feminists, before ERA, Phyllis Schlafly was maybe not a household name, but she was a well-known name in the world of defense and military superiority during the Cold War era. And she had a lot of knowledge, a wealth of knowledge to give there. So she talked a lot about military and nuclear armament and different things. And sure enough, as soon as I heard this, I thought this is kind of tantamount to the people saying, hold on. We should all just promise not to develop nuclear weapons and nuclear technology for the next 6 months because we feel like this might get out of hand. Here's the deal. You will not get bad people to stop pursuing new technology that will make them more powerful. What you must do is stay ahead of them and stay more powerful than them. Is it kind of dangerous? Yes. Is it a little bit of a double-edged sword? Yes. But this is something that there's a big factor that's completely outside of your control. So especially in a world where we insist and are accurately so, Russia is not our greatest enemy anymore. China is our greatest enemy. And truly, they are economically our enemy as much, if not more than militarily our enemy. So if China's running down this path, we cannot afford to not. Now, again, like I'm not saying that's easy, but that's kind of how I view it. I thought of that parallel as I saw, the news these last few weeks about this, 1,000 people signing a petition. And I thought this just seems like the anti-nuclear forces back in the 1940s. We have to stop doing this. No, we have to be first because we must use it well. Now, in this case, it's not as clear cut as, America versus the Axis powers. It's a little bit more dicey than that because we're talking about businesses and individuals, people inside, not just nation states. But I kind of view it that way. I look at it as it's an inevitability. We have to be involved. We have to, and I hate to say it, not regulate it. You know what I mean? Like we have to have a handle on this because someone else is going to. And if you get light years behind, which is the speed of technology, That's going to be troublesome. That's going to be very troublesome, particularly because of who our primary adversary in the world is now in communist China. So I tend to agree with you. I think it's a conversation that a lot of people are having. Like they'll see headlines about Chat GPT. We talk about AI and everyone, ooh, there's a Skynet joke. Let's insert that here. But it's a serious conversation to move all the way down the field on and understand that we're talking about, artificial intelligence goes into all sorts of automation. It's automation, right? We're grammar nerds on automation. We're grammar nerds. We got to get this stuff right. But that leads to a whole world of automation that is, well, it starts to get into every area of life, and it gets very dicey very quickly. So it's something that I don't think we can ignore. We can't put a pause on it. It needs to be done well and understood, so that when those who mean not well come along with it, we can actually understand and combat what's going on. So there's that. There's a lot of interesting, and we've got a couple of links that we're going to drop below some of the stuff that we've talked about here. But let's make a quick transition here in our last 10 or so minutes. Let's make a quick transition over to another. We've talked about China and technology. TikTok, the ban on TikTok, the bane of existence, the destroyer of Gen Z and below. We could ascribe many unhealthy and unwholesome names to it because it is extremely unhealthy and unwholesome. But banning TikTok, is it doable? And how do we do it without messing a bunch of other stuff up? The Restrict Act. You and I have talked about this, but Andrew, you want to give a rundown, or I guess I shouldn't ask you to give a rundown. That's unfair since this was my topic that I brought to the table. I'll give the rundown. So long story short, Josh Hawley, our own senator from the great state of Missouri here, was one of the first voices, I think, to really start talking about banning TikTok at the national level, not just from government devices, not just government employees, banning TikTok in America because of its absolute propaganda and data collection power from communist China, our enemy, not our ally, not our adversary, our enemy. And that is a very big conversation that's happened in the Senate. However, as much as that sentiment has been celebrated, the act that has come forward, the bill, which who did this? Was this? Yeah, that's right. This was Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, and John Thune, Republican from South Dakota, who's part of the GOP leadership, introduced this new thing, the Restrict Act, to give greater power to regulate and sanction China-affiliated companies like ByteDance, the owner of TikTok. But the problem is, this doesn't, when you start digging into it, the Restrict Act doesn't really ban TikTok all that fast or all that completely, but it does create brand new levels of bureaucratic nightmare, which I'm sure is what, especially the day after tax day, is on every American's mind in the negative column. We're going to make another bureaucracy to decide something maybe super slowly over the course of time. So it turns out Tom Massey in the House, our great Kentucky congressman from the 4th District, and a few others in the Senate, too, are starting to say this Restrict Act is no bueno. We're talking about something that's going to create layers of bureaucracy and might think about maybe banning or restricting or maybe doing something to TikTok, but only if the president tells the Department of Justice to, and only if the Department of Justice does it. This is no TikTok ban. This is just an excuse to exercise and create more government power. So the Restrict Act is out there, and it's looking pretty awful. But there's a lot going on. I've got a couple of links I want to drop below. But Andrew, I want to get your take on this because, again, despite this act being out there, Josh Hawley and even Marco Rubio, as much as I know conservatives have bones to pick with him a lot of the time, they have both advocated for more precise banning or more precise action to be taken that actually does something. So what do you think? Is this something we'll ever get a handle on? Is this absolutely something that we need to shut down? Can it be changed? What do you think, Andrew? What are your thoughts on the Restrict Act and what we're seeing brew up here?
Yeah. Well, let me start with the Restrict Act first. I think that what you said, your synopsis of it's exactly right. It's a no-teeth legislation, but essentially opens the door to more bureaucracy and more big government. So, if the president directs, these whatsoever, and it just kind of sells itself on the whole, oh, we're banning TikTok thing, but it's like, are you really? You're really not. My ideal remedy to this, well, one thing we've already kind of partially done is say, okay, at least on government devices, right? You can't download TikTok on your government device. And many states have done that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good idea, right? So if you have a state-issued iPad or a state-issued phone, hey, don't download TikTok on it. All right, it's just not a good idea. We know that it's monitored and influenced heavily by the CCP. Even the CEO of TikTok has come out and say multiple times that he wouldn't let his young kids get on TikTok unrestricted, and it's not a good, healthy place. And everyone knows the CCP is very involved in that. So let's not have it on government devices. And then as for rank and file American citizens, I guess this is just a little bit small government, self-government, driven for me to say. But I just think individuals need to delete the app. I don't think they need to use it. I don't think we need to pass a bill banning it per se. Ban it from federal devices, devices that have government communications on it that we don't want the CCP to get their hands on. Right. And hey, individuals, let's educate each other about the dangers of the surveillance state and the dangers of the CCP looking at our data and our private information. And you know what? You shouldn't even have TikTok, even if it was not CCP backed, because, hey, you should be doing better things with your mind. So we need to be encouraging.
Dare you suggest that people be productive and exercise personal responsibility?
Exactly.
You atrocious conservative.
Well, and you got it. I know everyone has to watch Dylan Mulvaney and the Bud Light stuff on TikTok, and I know you got to get that in, but there's other ways of doing it. Okay, there's other ways. But just don't get TikTok. Delete it off your phone if you have it. If you know somebody that uses TikTok, have a loving conversation with them and say, hey, this is not a good thing for your mind. And subsequently, share the China connections, share the CCP connections. Go and read some of the things that have come out about the surveillance state that's behind this application. It's absolutely obvious. So I think the answer isn't really government stepping in for the devices that are government issued. Yeah, I think that they shouldn't be on there, and many states have done that, and that'd be a good idea to do altogether. But as the people go, and rank and file individuals, I think we just need to do an education campaign and just encourage everybody to get this stuff off your devices, and probably all the other social media platforms as well, except maybe Twitter now. Twitter might be okay, but that's still up for debate.
Careful now. Careful. No, and I would tend to agree with you. And this actually leads to a point that I wanted to make, but it also reminds me to be completely honest about this whole topic. I believe that everyone who's paying attention should delete it. I believe that you should proselytize to other people, explain to them why this is important, why you should do it too. But we have to always recognize that there is a segment of the population who doesn't care, isn't paying attention, won't listen. This is particularly applicable to, now pardon me, I'm about to probably not ruffle any feathers of our viewers too badly, but this applies very specifically to a lot of very young and very dumb people who don't pay attention. People younger than both of us who don't pay attention, and they're going to do stuff anyway. So when you and this is where my only, talking about this at all, I would tend to agree. Let's be careful what we're even talking about associated with government. But when something arises to the appropriate level of a risk to our very security and solvency as a nation itself, there is room to talk about this. Now, there's a lot of what we should talk about, how it gets done, what gets created, what power does or doesn't get formed. But I think that here we have a case for just how dangerous this is to society. Yes, we should all choose to stop, but yes, this should also be outlawed at a level where someone who tries to do otherwise, or who just doesn't care to listen to the reason, can be, told, no, this isn't how this works. This is quite literally dangerous. I mean, we do this with some laws. Again, the laws are an incursion of morality onto everyone as a whole in society, which is why you use them. They have their purpose, but we're also very careful with how much we use it. It has to be appropriate and correct. So I agree with you. But I would say, just in my mind, is this one of those things that rises to that level? I think we're about there. But to have this discussion, not just to decide and do it a certain way, but to decide how to do it. But I will say, this kind of goes back into our other one. We're talking about AI, and should we even do this? Is this even healthy? Should it just not be pursued? Well, someone's going to pursue it, so we need to pursue it first, better, fastest, bigger, so that it can be, controlled by good people or understood by good people at the level of, the bad people. And this is an argument that gets abused a lot to do bad things. I recognize that, but there's also validity behind it. But it's the same thing here. Part of me says, and this is why I appreciate Tom Massey so much. Hey, everyone, we're pursuing a good thing, getting rid of this, communist state-sponsored data surveillance network, and getting rid of it out of our country and off of our people's devices. But let's be careful how we do that, because even if we're setting this up in a good way, what happens when someone you don't like is in charge of government and they decide to ban something that's actually a truth spreading measure, a free speech spreading measure, because we have given government that much more power over the digital market space. That's, being overly broad is always extremely dangerous. And as conservatives, this is where we come back to principles like the 10th Amendment kind of thing. Everything not specifically said in this Constitution, in this document, if we didn't say it specifically, states, not federal, states. Don't assume. Assume that we mean not the federal government. Like, we are being very specific and very restrictive on what you do get to do, big government. And that ought to always be how we approach this, whether it's, artificial intelligence or this. The principle of, well, this is a good thing to do. Let's charge forward. Let's be careful how we do it, because even if this works, someone else will have this power later on down the road who doesn't like you, quite possibly, quite probably, and we're going to want to make sure that this is done. So there's a lot of times that the Tom Masseys of the world, the Josh Hawleys of the world will stand out against the crowd, because even though it looks like I'm opposing something good, we're doing a good thing in the wrong way. And
Right.
This is, I know that this isn't a foreign concept to most of our conservative audience here, but when it comes to how we craft legislation, how we ask our representatives to vote, this is a very good reason to vote against or oppose legislation that often has a good purpose, but is going to do so at the expense of the procedure, at the expense of our future, setting up some precedent that is going to be terrible in the future. So this is a really good study in that. We're looking at something that I think needs to be done, or at least needs to be dealt with, regardless of how we end up doing it. It needs to be done well, because doing it incorrectly, according to this, this article is going to be linked down here in the description below. There's just this whole world of possibilities that we have created a new monster. Even if we manage to get rid of TikTok, we might have created something worse, and it's here. It's not over in China. It's here. So that's a big consideration. That's a principles thing. And I know this, you and I always try to go back to principles here. This is a big principles thing. How we do it matters as much, if not more than what we do. How we do it matters, because it's going to be used again later. So that goes for AI, that goes for government legislation, and a whole host of things we talk about here. But anyway, that's what I've got. We've got AI, we've got TikTok, we've got all the and it's just, everyone, you should just do what we do. Like an adult, don't get TikTok. Just see all of the viral TikToks once they come to Instagram Reels. And then like an adult, you see them there. This is what, no, I'm kidding. Kind of, though. That is what I do.
Let me add one thing here. I wanted to, I meant to say this when we were talking about Twitter and Elon. So I'm kind of hearkening back, but this has all been on the subject of tech. So we're still in the same wheelhouse. But Elon did something I just wanted to point out, because this kind of got talked about, but I think it's a bigger deal. It's a little thing, but it's a bigger deal people haven't discussed, is that Twitter, I think it was last week maybe, did this new thing where every single government-funded media account now has a label on it that says government-funded media. So NPR, PBS, BBC, all these accounts now, on every tweet, on every page, every post, it says government-funded media. And I've got the NPR page right now open, and they have their little banner on Twitter, and it says always free and independent, always on NPR. And then right below it says government funded. And it's just hilarious, because it says always free and always independent, but then it says government funded. And they threw a hissy fit. NPR did. And if you go and look at the Twitter page, they've got all these tweets about, hey, we're going to go to these other social media pages and follow us there and blah, blah, blah. But that's brilliant that Elon's doing that. And, we've talked about Elon. He's done some good stuff and he's done some bad stuff. But I really appreciate what he's done, at least on Twitter, regarding just exposing things. And it's not like that's like even a big dig. It's just a fact, that they're government funded. But I loved that he did that. And that was something I missed that I didn't catch until a couple of days ago. And I just wanted to share, because it's so important. And we talked about that BBC interview with Elon. I think it was last week. Did we talk about that?
Right. Yeah.
And him exposing that. That's exactly what needs to happen. So I just think that's great. That entertained me.
Oh yeah, and I had a good time too. And this, this has to do with our great white neighbors to the north, the Canadian. And I don't mean that's not a racial comment. This is just the snow and the hinterland of the Canadian tundra, and how awful that is, filled with moose and Tim Hortons coffee instead of American coffee. But oh well, that's neither here nor there. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Did you see these stories? after NPR had their hissy fit about being stamped as government funded, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation actually got stamped as a government funded entity. And this week on Monday, they paused all of their activities on Twitter because they said it undermines their credibility as an independent journalist. And they started complaining, and they sent a big letter to Elon Musk. Elon Musk tweeted their letter and said, fine, I'll change it. I won't call you a government-funded entity. We'll call you a 69% government-funded agency. And then posted this proof. And I'm like, it was hilarious. I mean, all the way up to the levels of Justin Trudeau. No, we're not government-funded. We are funded by public dollars through Parliament. Really? Because that sounds like government to me.
Right.
It's hilarious to watch the clutching of pearls when someone like Elon Musk with a huge megaphone says something true, and everyone just, oh, how dare you say it? So you want to go see a good thing? I'll maybe throw that in. That's a for fun. But yes, NPR and the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation got their petticoats in a ruffle over Elon Musk labeling them as state-sponsored news.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
Yeah, they were mad because they said, well, we're actually less than 70% funded, and that was their big point. And then it ended up being 69%. It's like, okay,
exactly. All I could think of that old, hey, I resemble that remark. Take that back. It's true. So there's a lot of good stuff, and I think that this just Elon and AI aside, there is truth to be found in transparency, and that is a good thing. So if anyone who is pursuing these things and thinks that they're good, whether you think they're good or not, we can find a lot of friendship, kinship, allyship in people who are searching for transparency. Anyone who's trying to hide usually has something to hide, and anyone who's not trying to hide anything, typically that person is at least an honest broker, even if they're different or wrong in their opinion than you. So this is a good reminder of that. This is one of the reasons I think we like Elon quite a bit around here. Don't necessarily agree with him, but I think he's an honest broker at this point. Now, I know a lot of people who think otherwise, but time remains to be seen. In the meantime, whether he's an honest broker or not, he is making NPR, Canadian Broadcasting, and all the other state-sponsored medias just lose their marbles, and I love it. The only thing better, what do you think? Trump, Musk 2024, should he select an outsider, another outsider? Can you think of the collective explosion?
First African-American vice president. Well, I guess Kamala, but first male African-American vice president.
Kamala, well, as I will be the first to remind people, Kamala's half Jamaican and half Indian. This has definitely been something that has been disputed before. I have seen that, though. If Elon Musk were to run, oh, boy. But it is nonetheless definitely an interesting thing. I love it whenever someone can make the liars' heads explode, which is what he does all the time. And it's been exciting to watch. So I think this is a fascinating conversation. This is certainly not the end of it. Everyone out there, send us an email. Drop it in the comment below. Let us know, what do you think? Sound off. What do you think? What are your questions? What other offshoots did we maybe not cover? Again, this is just, we are cracking the surface or scratching the surface of a huge set of conversations that just permeate through all sorts of areas of our life. So please feel free to sound off with your ideas, to ask questions that you'd like to see us cover in the future, or if you just want us to send you an email back. You may also send in all of the Elon and Skynet memes and any kind of memes you want. We will accept those gladly too, and quite possibly we'll share them on as well. But we appreciate you joining us here today. I think we'll probably close it out there. This has been a long conversation, but a good one. This is a big one that we all need to be considering, and going beyond just the headlines that are complaining about Chat GPT or, we should ban TikTok. We got to be thoughtful about this stuff. We got to be talking about this stuff with each other, just like Andrew and I have done today. So hopefully this sparks some good conversations from you, for you, some good thoughts that you have to go back and forth, maybe with us or with others, and we will look forward to doing the same thing next Thursday with another conversation. So until then, like, share, and subscribe. Shoot us an email if you want. Go sign up for our email list at phyllisschlafly.com, and we will look forward to seeing you, Andrew and I will, next Thursday for another Unauthorized Caucus. Thank you, everybody.